Welcome back to another episode. Today's episode is going to be on light painting, and we're going to go over what it is, why it's used, what you can use it for, and then the pros and cons of using light painting in your photography. So let's get started. First thing we're going to go over today is what is light painting. So when you look at it, there are two different forms of light painting. One is much more common, and I think the general population is going to be familiar with it. I'm going to refer to that as light drawing in this video because that's essentially what you're doing compared to light painting, where you're painting in the light in certain areas. When we look at traditional light painting, you are typically going to be taking a light source like this and an object and just painting in areas of light where you want them, and specifically where you want them. That's one of the great things about light painting is you can add light specifically where you want, whereas if you're using strobes and all of those items to light things, you can typically move things around, but you can't isolate the light into a specific spot like I can with this flashlight. I can take a 2-second exposure and just expose the nozzle of this watering can, but if I want to hit it with a strobe, I'm going to light pretty much the entire thing no matter how close I get, because that light is so much less concentrated than a flashlight is going to be. One of the reasons it's called light painting is because when someone's painting an image, they typically add light to areas that they want to draw attention to. Typically, you're not going to see a painting and it's not going to have like natural light. There might be one or two light sources in the image, and the shadows that they painted into that photo aren't realistic. So light painting can sometimes give the image a very painterly effect, and that's originally why it was called light painting, because it has that effect on images. They don't always look real, and that's a huge benefit but also a con, so it depends on who you're marketing your photography to. You can get some incredibly unique images that aren't possible otherwise if you didn't know how to light paint. Now, if we compare light painting with a flashlight or some other kind of light source to light drawing, which more people are going to be familiar with, light drawing is typically, it's also used with a flashlight or steel wool on fire, and people are typically writing out things like writing messages is a pretty common one. I've actually done that before, and we'll throw a photo up right here of things I've done in the past. And light painting, light drawing is pretty basic. It's just a long exposure. You're drawing with a flashlight what you want it to say, or a design, or anything that you really want. And compared to light painting, it's a lot less difficult. And I think most people get drawn to that, and when they hear light painting, that's what they think. But light painting is a lot more intensive when you're looking at it. So it takes a lot longer to do. You have to be very, very careful with how you line up the shots. So typically, beginners are going to do a lot more of the light drawing, where they're painting in like a certain word or something into an image, where they're doing their burning steel wool and spinning it around in a circle and watching sparks fly everywhere. That's a super, super common one. The big thing is just adding light specifically in spots that you want it, and drawing attention to those features of an item that you want the viewer's eye to go to. So with this particular watering can, it has this great texture to it, and just like years and years of scuffs. And if I'm light painting this, I want to draw attention to those. Like, I don't need the attention on this back little ridge where the metal connects to itself. I want to draw attention to the interesting elements of it, and that back ridge is not interesting, so I don't want to light that as much as I want to light the ridges on this, the texture, the spout, the handle. These are all more interesting. So I'm going to focus on lighting these specific areas to draw the viewer's eye to that spot. Another benefit to light painting is only lighting specific areas that you want to. You have total control over the lighting, which is super helpful when you've got a single item that you want to highlight and you don't want to light every single area of it. You have the control to go over and light those very small portions of the image and draw attention to them straight away without any distracting lighting anywhere else in the image, which is incredibly helpful when you're trying to like capture a viewer's attention. Light the area that is interesting on the object or the subject or whatever you're photographing, and that'll help keep the viewer's eye right where you want it to go. For this watering can, all I did was grab this little piece of vinyl from Home Depot and set it as the base, and then I have a wood backdrop with a very different texture than this, obviously, to separate it from the background. And I set that on top of one Pelican case, a canvas, and a strobe bag to get it off the ground. And that took me 5 minutes to figure out, to kind of get it level, but setup is not a huge issue. The longest part of the process is shooting the images and then compiling them all into Photoshop and adding those layers together to get one single image. It does take a really long time. And then sometimes if your tripod isn't sturdy enough, you're going to get movement in your images and you're going to have to go through and shift those images a pixel or two up or down, left or right, which is incredibly time consuming. That's probably the most difficult part of the whole thing, and that's probably the biggest con and probably what draws people away from it the most. Light drawing is super quick and easy. You take your camera, set it to 20-30 seconds, click the shutter button, go run away, do your light painting however long it takes, and then you're done. It's that easy. It's one exposure, whereas light painting is going to be anywhere from 2 exposures, which is probably not very common anymore. Once you start really getting into it, you're like, okay, I need a lot of exposures. I need a lot of different photos that I can add together so I can compile all of these into one image that I really like, that really showcases the subject that I'm photographing. So we've got a really long time from start to finish, and you've got to take a lot of images. And the learning curve for figuring it out, like it might take weeks for you to really like truly figure it out. And then you're still going to have those common difficulties of the tripod moving a little bit. Like every time you press that shutter, your camera moves just a tiny bit and you have to adjust. So the learning curve comes in editing and kind of figuring out like, oh, I have my tripod set up this way. That didn't produce any shake. I'm going to do that again. So you get hit with all of these failures, but then you start learning quicker and quicker. So as soon as you start actually attempting to do light painting, you're going to figure it out eventually, and you're going to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And then you stick to that, and you get a winning strategy, and editing comes faster and faster because you know what exactly to look for. You would know what images and what kind of lighting works. That way, when you go through, instead of doing like what I've done in the past, having to redo a shoot 4 times, you only need to do it 1 time because you've got your setup, you know what you need to do, you know exactly how to light the object, and you're good to go. You just throw it into Photoshop, edit for a little bit, depending on how long and how much adjustments you have to do, and you've got a final image that looks completely unique to you because no one else is going to be able to light that object the exact same way that you did. Experimenting with light painting is another huge benefit to learning how to use it. Once you start like figuring it out, you can start adding different elements into your photographs. If you're photographing a still object with a strobe or something similar and you just like, it's not quite there, you can just throw in a little light painting and draw a little bit of more attention to that area that you want, and it's just another tool to add to your arsenal in your bag. So learning light painting along with strobe and flash lighting is so beneficial because it just adds another tool to your tool bag, and you're good to go. Like, in any circumstance, you can figure something out, and you can draw from that knowledge that you learned from doing light painting and apply it to different areas, which is incredibly beneficial, and I think everybody should be learning how to do. You should know multiple different aspects of different photography and bring it all together, bring all that knowledge together, and really use it to make the best photograph that you can that is your style, and really bring that photography bring your photography to an entirely different level. Now, why should you learn light painting and why should you use it in your photography? Well, there's a couple different things. It allows you to light things exactly the way that you want them to be lit. You have total control over the light, which is fantastic. Learning about lighting and learning how to control it is the biggest aspect of photography. It doesn't matter if you're inside, outside, you need to learn how to control the light and use it to your advantage. And when you have complete control over the light, that is just like the perfect recipe for a phenomenal photograph. So the faster you can learn how to control the light and use it to your advantage, the better. All you need to light paint is a flashlight or some source of light, a PVC pipe, like an elbow, to isolate the light and get it in one direct spot, an interesting subject, a tripod, and a camera. That's going to be it for me today. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about light painting and what it is. I've really enjoyed learning how to do it, so I hope you can take what I've told you today and really apply that to your photography. Until next time, peace.